So I missed the webinar this morning. I've been really sick, but I wanted to kind of walk through some important things to point out from the research section. I'll try and make this kind of quick and go through it with you guys, so that way next week we can start on the next section, which is nutritional science. So for research, I posted a few videos already on the steps of research, p-values, and r-values. So I'm not going to go over those, but I will post a link to those with all the videos for this section. So something to note that I haven't talked about yet, and I haven't really seen much on it, but it might be one of those obscure things that get put on the exam. I don't know. But on page 32 in Ingman, she has a list of some different, they're basically different ways when you are doing research. Like they have checklists of things you should follow. So what I'm talking about is the QROM, Prisma, Moose, and Consort. So QROM is the quality of reporting of meta-analysis standards. It increases transparency and decreases bias. This was kind of the first way when you were doing meta-analysis that they kind of just had the standards listed. In 2009, Quorum got updated to Prisma, which is a better method that supersedes Quorum. It's preferred by reporting items for systematic reviews and meta-analysis. The kind of key thing here is meta-analysis are really great ways to like basically if you have a study that's a meta-analysis, they've looked at a ton of studies and kind of put it all together and given you some main facts or some main things that has the strongest relationships in them. So meta-analysis are formal defined system that combines the results of numerous small studies to increase the strength of belief in the observed effect. Studies are a similar design and have defined inclusion and exclusion criteria and are published in peer-reviewed studies. So Quorum is one of the ways that they basically go through that process, which is updated to Prisma, which has the randomized control trials. Moose is meta-analysis observational studies in epidemiology. It's basically, the big difference there is Moose, I like to think of MO, observational studies. It's a yes or no checklist. Then you have Consort, which is common criteria for clinical trials. So consorts, I think common and critical, and those are basically just something to note about how studies get published in different types of studies, and that meta-analysis is combining a bunch of studies to provide a really strong argument for something. All right, so moving on to the next page, talking about the components in the research report. So we have abstract, your general introduction that includes objectives, definitions, backgrounds, limitations, review of existing literature, methodology, results, discussion, conclusions, and implications. So basically, I've been seeing practice questions on this, kind of know the difference between the discussion and conclusion. The results and the discussion and the conclusion. So the results, you are just listing your findings. So it might be a table of your findings. It might be an interview. Here's interview questions and answers. You're not saying anything really else about it. It's your discussion that you're talking about it. I found out from my interview that they were saying this, which makes me think this, or could be because of this. So you're kind of explaining your results in the discussion. Then your conclusion, it's a brief summary of results. It might have recommendations, your implications, how this information might be applied in practice. So implications for the future is what I think of. I've been writing research reports like, how is this, what's the next step? That's your implication. So anyway, really know results is specific lab, clinical, objective, or subjective findings. Your discussion is the interpretation of results. All right, our next section is descriptive versus analytical research. So descriptive research, all right, catch my breath. So we're thinking of describing something, right? So qualitative research is non-numerical. It's talking about the phenomenon of interest, what specific dimensions are associated with an effective counselor. Data is usually collected through interviews, observation, questionnaires. They may use focus groups or the deep and it doesn't really say what it is in England, but I looked up, it's like you're getting experts' opinion on something. That's the deepthi. So it makes me think of like some like smart Hindu monk or something, deepthi. But expert opinions is the deepthi part there. So when we're comparing descriptive versus analytical, our descriptive, gathering new data to generate a hypothesis. There's qualitative methods. There are associations. They are not cause and effect. Again, we're describing. We have things that are described a certain way, where we should be, what is the best thing to do. Analytical is more of what we think of when we think of traditional research, like we think of a science experiment, right? So we're testing a hypothesis. We have a cause and effect. This is seen in experimental, clinical trials, randomization, random control trial, control groups. That's going to be more our analytical research versus descriptive. And moving on. Something to note is the Hawthorne effect. So the Hawthorne effect, I have notes on it about group-based observational research, the effect of an outcome variable on the participants because they know they are participating in the study. I.e., if participants know they are part of the experiment, it causes improved efforts and distorts the research. Basically, your research has been distorted because I'm part of the study that's going to be, never have cancer ever again. And maybe that's a terrible example. But it's kind of like the mindset or the placebo effect. So basically, just note the Hawthorne effect, positive results due to attentions that participants receive. So you're wanting to remove that, basically, that bias or that positive response because of the attention they've gotten. So maybe I'll find a better example of that and do a video of that for you guys. But anyway, that's the Hawthorne effect. So we know that that is that deals with the placebo effect and research. All right, what else do we have? Our randomized clinical trial. We should know kind of what that is. That's very good. We have two groups. One is the treatment group. One is the control group. It decreases bias, increases the probability that what we are studying actually attributed to the treatment. So there's not a whole lot of like external factors happening that might influence our experiment. All right, so different types of research. Quasi-experimental. So quasi, I think of almost. It's almost good research. It's using matching, not randomized. It's a time series analysis. It usually studies more fuzzy contextual concepts like morale, quality of life. There's no control group. It's the same group before and after. So we have a group of nurses, and we're studying their effects before we give them this weight loss pill, and then 10 years down the road, that same group of nurses where are they at? How much weight have they gained? Are they obese? That is quasi-experimental because we have no control group. So it's before and after the program, same group of people, not a very strong way to do research, but it is a type of research, quasi. Cohort studies, we're looking at a group whose members have something in common. They're sometimes called incidence studies, tracking the frequency of new cases or newly diagnosed of a disease, carried out over a long period of time, longitudinal. Then we have case control. Those with the disease are concerned with a group without the disease, but otherwise have similar characteristics. So case control, we're focusing on a specific disease. Cross-sectional, so that's going to be a snapshot at one point in time that describes current, not past or future events. So I think of cross-sectional, you have a dot in the middle, and that's your one point in time. That's what you're looking at. And then the International Review Board. So International Review Board is basically going to be looking at like the ethics of your experiment. So if you're doing an experiment on people, the review board has to go through and make sure that it's ethical. I remember seeing lots of like videos and documentaries on some really crazy research experiments that they used to do on people. Like one was I think there's a documentary on Netflix or Amazon or something that is this group of people, and they put them in a prison, and half of them are prisoners and half of them are guards, and it just gets really carried away and really crazy. So the review board was made to make sure everything's being ethical and you're not like doing anything that might hurt somebody or cause problems. So that's a big deal to have something reviewed by them before you put it into a study or an experiment.